A first-of-its-kind regional conference in Singapore had experts highlighting the need for more outdoor learning at a time when online lessons are becoming the norm. They discussed how getting in touch with nature could help teach inclusivity and sustainability. The event was organised by the Singapore University of Social Sciences. And for more, we have Chew Wee Ling, Specialist and Lead of Outdoor Education at SUSS, and Nur Amalena, Instructor at Outward Bound Singapore. Good evening, ladies, and welcome to both of you. Thank you for joining us. First off, Wee Ling, in this post-pandemic world, remote and online learning, it's really taken off for students and also for adults as well. Why do you think it's worth going back a little to touch and feel by learning, by experiencing?
Post-pandemic, I think experiential learning has gained even greater significance and momentum. Counteracting the fast-paced digital environment, I believe experiential learning can ground the learners in their senses, in reality as well as in nature. It is a powerful tool for well-being, and with a well-facilitated process, it can really engage their cognitive faculties to reflect and think. Learning by experiencing usually happen in groups, which nurtures inter-community reliance. And I believe the outdoors also serve to strengthen their mental resilience. So I do think it's worth going back.
Amalena, the second question will be for you. Now, Wee Ling was mentioning outdoors and the function of that. Now, you are an instructor and you also conducted a workshop on interacting with wildlife. Obviously, ask someone, say, in Canada as opposed to Singapore, wildlife, what it means for them would be very, very different. In Singapore, what would count as wildlife, and how does interacting with this wildlife further instruct our students?
So I think wildlife in Singapore includes both flora and fauna, and we both have native and non-native species. So some of the animals that we may have seen are like the long-tailed macaques and the oriental pied hornbills. And in Singapore, I think it's a highly urbanized city, which means we have a lot of fragmented habitats and forest landscapes. And with our residential and developmental areas near forest, we do come across wildlife a little bit more. So we do want to learn how to be able to minimize our human-wildlife conflict as much as possible. And oftentimes we don't know how to do that properly. So when students come over to OBS, we do find it necessary to share with them some practical skills on how to manage these wildlife interactions. Yeah. So yes. Ultimately, we hope to give them better knowledge and understanding on this wildlife so we can have a more positive response towards the interactions than to fear them.
That's so important in our urban setting with nature and buildings in such close proximity with each other. Amalena, Wee Ling, let's get back to you. Can you take us through some of the key ideas from the conference on experiential learning?
The conference centers around sustainability and inclusivity, thereby addressing some pressing challenges of today. By fostering idea exchanges and networking, we really hope to rally regional thought leaders and mobilize collective action to empower youth and also to, through that, uplift their communities.
All right. If I could bring Amalena back, I'm hearing a great many issues here. So, for example, Wee Ling was mentioning learning in the outdoors can improve inclusivity, ideas of sustainability. And for you, it was a much more practical thing of the fact is it's fragmented. So we've got essentially islands of people living, and then some natural, relatively natural, untouched nature reserves, and then again people living. So we have to learn to practically how to deal, for example, with a wild boar. Now, that's a very practical thing, as opposed to by dealing with a wild boar, we learn to be sustainable, we learn how to live a more inclusive kind of life. For you, how does all this come together so you can say, in this conference or the way I teach, these things come together and the general idea would be what? What do we actually teach students?
So I think we want to focus more on the experiential learning aspect. So whenever we have encounters with these kinds of wildlife and experiences with them, we want to understand why these kinds of experiences happen. And in our case at our bound, we want to facilitate those experiences so that they can understand a little bit more about why these issues happen, and to take their own action so that next time when they leave the course and they are out in their own lives, they are able to manage or even share this information back with their friends or families.
Is there anything, Amalena, about their experience that surprises them, that they share with you?
I think sometimes they are often afraid that the animal would approach them or attack them. But most of the times, animals and wildlife are actually afraid of humans. So we just need to be able to know how to behave around them. For instance, what we would do is to prevent any interactions, like keeping away attractants like food or plastic bags, because they are really attracted to these kinds of items. And we do want to enjoy the presence of this wildlife from afar so that we can also understand and learn about them a little bit more and how they actually keep a balance to our ecosystem.
All right, a final question, but both of you, if you could take turns to answer that, and we'll start, of course, with Wee Ling. The question is this: can we get an example each from each one of you, how you think learning can incorporate more touch, feel, and the outdoors in our education system? Starting with you, Wee Ling.
As an education institution, I think weaving in more applied opportunities and project-based assignments are ways which we can enhance experiential learning. Yeah. For example, they can actually bring the elders into the track to do a track together. So we are looking at that happening sometime soon with St. Luke's Elder Care.
And Amalena, you, what do you think?
Yeah, I think tapping onto what Wee Ling said, we also have a experiential learning approach. For instance, we do conduct mangrove appreciation sessions, and it broadens the perspective of the participants on conserving the mangroves. They can see for themselves the amount of trash that is collected in the roots and understand a bit more about the human impact on our ecosystem. And we use those experiences to facilitate how they can take action on those issues.
Oh, thanks so much, both of you, for joining us this evening. Chew Wee Ling from SUSS and Nur Amalena from Outward Bound Singapore. Thank you.